All right, man. Peace. So, brothers, in the aftermath of the mass shooting that occurred on Valentine's Day at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, a lot of information about the event has been dispensed for mass consumption, both overtly and subliminally. We're now approximately 40 days past the event, which, in my view, will finally provide some proper context to evaluate what transpired and why. Brothers, I don't rush to make videos, especially for important events like the mass shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. I let other people do that. I like to take in all the empirical data. Anyway, as I've already stated on this channel numerous times, Valentine's Day was known in the Greco-Roman world as the Lupercalia, aka the Festival of the Wolf, in which human sacrifice will be performed to honor the goat god Pan. He was the god of ancient Greece, and he's also the current god of America. Okay? You know him here in America as the Baphomet or Uncle Sam. That's what he's known as colloquially. That's why Uncle Sam is always shown with the goatee. And he always states what? I want you. Please understand something, brothers. America was set up under the inspiration of Luciferians. All the so-called founding fathers were Wiccans. Okay, they were Luciferians. And going even further back, the goat god was known in ancient Kemet as Khnum, Khnum. I've gone over this numerous times, especially for you brothers that are actually interested in the subject, in history and things of that nature. But it's very important for you to know. You have to understand those type of things so that you get a greater grasp of what's going on around you. But anyway, this year, Valentine's Day was celebrated on the same day as the Catholic Church holiday known as Ash Wednesday, which is really just a veneration of the death and burning of Tammuz. I mentioned this personage numerous times on this channel. You can read about him to a certain degree in Ezekiel the 8th chapter. Tammuz is the Semitic name for Heru, who is the reincarnated spirit of Asar. At least that is how he's worshipped, as the reincarnated spirit of Asar. Most of these sacrifices are done in commemoration of Heru, who was also viewed symbolically as the phoenix bird because he rises from the ashes. Remember I said that. Remember I said that as we go through this video and through this segment, that Heru was also likened unto the phoenix bird. The phoenix bird is still utilized today by the quote-unquote powers that be as the eagle. The eagle is just a modernized symbol and an allusion to the phoenix bird. That's why they use it as the Great Seal of America. That's why it was used in ancient Rome, what they call the imperial eagle, or the Aquila, spelled Aquila. For those of you brothers who read the scriptures, you know about Aquila and Priscilla. The name just means eagle. Like when you talk about a Caucasian person, they're known for having what? Aquiline features, meaning what? They have, and this is what they term it. They created this term for themselves, aquiline features, meaning bird-like features or eagle-like features. But anyway, that is why on Ash Wednesday, like me, for example, I grew up going to Catholic school, so I was very familiar with the ritual of them putting the cross on your forehead during Ash Wednesday. That was the cross for Tammuz. Okay, that's not for Christ, that is for Tammuz. And it represented sacrifice, his sacrifice for mankind. As you can see by this woman here, she has the cross on her forehead on that day that the event occurs. She's also wearing the heart locket. The heart is a symbol for Tammuz, or as he was known in Kemet as Harpocrates. He's known conventionally as Cupid. The heart necklace or locket that she's wearing, that was worn in the ancient world. That was known as the bulla. B as in boy, U-L-L-A. That was worn by little boys in ancient Rome. Because, once again, Harpocrates or Cupid was always depicted as a little boy, and his symbol was the heart. Why? Because the heart represents Cush, or as he was known in ancient Kemet as Ra. Okay? He was the initial falcon god. Heru took on the mantle of the falcon god, aka the sun god, after that. So that is all the so-called Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting was actually about. It was used as a pretext to hopefully bring in some type of gun control reform so that when and if, but really when, they decide to declare martial law on the people in America, that they can't fight back. That is how they're going to try to force the quote-unquote RFID chip, aka the mark of the beast, on the people. They want to make sure that they cannot fight back first. But just look at this woman. They took a photo of her for a reason. I'm not going to say that she's a crisis actor or a plant or anything like that, but she just happens to be dressed with a very high level of symbolism. She has on the white with the black and the red, which, as we know, symbolizes blood sacrifice, to bring together opposites. She has the cross on her forehead, and she's wearing the heart chain. So oftentimes they will take photos and utilize those photos for a reason. But let's go through this segment very carefully. I just want to point certain things out to help you brothers understand what you're watching, those of you who may not understand quite what you're looking at.
But I know together as a family, as a school, and as a whole, we can get through it.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
A trauma that clearly will forever be etched in their minds. Jeff, officials here say they will not be releasing a full list of the victims' names until all family members can be properly notified.
All right, Manny, I know you were here all day yesterday and will be here today as well. Thank you very much. Friends and students that we've talked to have told us a lot more about this shooter from what we've heard so far. We're going to have more on that in just a moment. Just a little while ago, I did speak with Jim Gard, who is a math teacher here at Stoneman Douglas High. He locked himself and several students inside his classroom during what was happening, and he talked about what happened yesterday afternoon.
Right around 2:20, I heard the fire alarm go off. So I told the kids, I said, look, just hang out for a second. This could just simply be something accidental. Then we got an announcement that said, okay, evacuate the building, like 10 seconds later. So open it.
Now, brothers, as you can see, the emblem for the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School is the eagle. As I've already stated, the reason why the eagle is venerated so much in this society is because it's an allusion to the phoenix bird, or the rising of Horus. Why do I bring that up? Because the eagle emblem for this school has a high level of resonance, as is going to be shown or proven later on in this video. Hopefully I won't have to go to a part 2, but if I do, I'll show it in part 2. If not, we'll see it in part 1.
The door, the kids, took off. The kids are great. They're very orderly. So as I'm ready to leave, then we hear all these popping sounds, sounding like firecrackers. And we heard Mr. Porter came on again. He said, "Code red, get back in the room." So I yelled at the kids, let's go, let's get back in here. Well, there were 6 kids, 5 girls and a boy, who were kind of right there. I shuttled them in, and then the kids, what's happening? I said, I don't know, this might be a drill. Let's assume it's a drill. And then really, 20 minutes later, we knew it wasn't.
And so the kids went where?
They were in my room. Now, all the other kids, what I did was went on our email, and a lot of teachers are emailing, these children are with me, these children are with me, these are the ones I don't have. So I put on all the 6 kids who I had, and then the other kids who were absent, just who weren't there, and the other kids who were missing, to try and find out where they are. Meanwhile, my other kids, they all have cell phones, so we're all texting, and we found that the other 10 out of 13 were, and the other 3 we didn't know, but we found them later on. At 4 o'clock, we got released.
We're hearing stories about...
Once again, brothers, Valentine's Day is a day of ritual sacrifice. Okay? When they talk about love, the quote-unquote God of love, the actual God of love for this society, is talking about the Bacchus, as he's also known as Horus or Tammuz. He always demands a blood sacrifice.
Many teachers like you who tried to protect the students, in some cases took them in closets, in some cases may have shielded these students. Can you talk about your fellow teachers and how they're doing this morning?
I only know that I don't know what news is out there, what names are out there, but I do know that one of our teachers apparently was shot. Well, 2 of them were shot and killed. One was shot and killed standing in front of the kids, which I'm not sure if you guys have his name released or not, but it doesn't surprise me at all. I've known him since I got here in 2008. He was a fantastic person. He went here. He was an eagle. He went here. He was a great, person, great guy.
Friends and students are describing to us the suspect as a troubled, violent teenager before he was kicked out of Stoneman Douglas High.
Let me say something very quickly about Mr. Nicholas Cruz that you very rarely hear in the mainstream media in regards to the reporting of this story. He states that he heard voices that not only were telling him what to do in regards to shooting his fellow students or his former classmates, but were telling him how to do it. They were literally directing him through the hallways of the school and instructing him on who to shoot and so on and so forth. Now, for those of you who may find that to be a little difficult to believe, there is technology that allows higher level intelligence agencies to quote unquote hack into your brain and deliver messages to you and also direct your movements. It's known as voice of God technology. DARPA refers to it as sonic projection. You can look it up. Please do not take my word for it. It is known as sonic projection under DARPA. For those of you brothers who are old enough to remember, in the original Superman movie starring Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman, I've mentioned this in previous videos or lightly touched on it. Superman is Baal, and his father is El of the Canaanite quote-unquote religion system. Krypton is actually the planet Saturn. That's what it represents. But I'll probably be delving a little bit deeper into that in another video. On the planet Saturn, which is worshipped in this society, the North Pole of Saturn has what they call a hexagon, which is an illusion in regards to the occult mystery school system or the Kemetic mystery school system of what they call the cube, Metatron's cube. The hexagon, they believe, represents the cube. Saturn was venerated in the ancient world because they believed that it controlled the other planets and it also controlled time. That's why Saturn was also known as Chronos. When we talk about the perspective of time, we talk about it according to chronological perspective. Chronological comes from the word chronos. So they still venerate the planet Saturn. The mythological or the comic book planet of Krypton was an allusion to Saturn. And that is why Superman, when he established what they called his Fortress of Solitude, it was at the North Pole. Because that was in direct correlation to the quote-unquote hexagon on the North Pole of Saturn. Point being is this, that when you watch the old Superman movie, you'll notice that Lex Luthor, when he was trying to communicate to Superman, he had to speak to him on a radio frequency. He had to sonically project his voice into Superman's head. The reason why they did that was because that technology really existed at that time. The former musician, the master singer Donny Hathaway himself stated that people were trying to hack into his brain and steal his musical ideas. This was a little bit before he ended up getting quote-unquote suicided. They alleged that he killed himself, but he was thrown out of a window at the Essex Hotel. But that's another video for another day. Point being is this, I have little doubt that Mr. Nicholas Cruz was a programmed, what they call Manchurian candidate or a sleeper assassin. Once again, by his own testimony, he alleges that he heard voices within his head that gave him detailed instructions on what to do. The Las Vegas shooter, Stephen Paddock, also alleged that his brain was being hacked into and that the people who were hacking into his brain could take control of his body and have him do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. Once again, brothers, look it up. It's known as Voice of God technology, and DARPA refers to it as sonic projection. So Nicholas Cruz alleges that there were people or there were voices inside of his head that were directing him to do what they wanted him to do. Do I believe that he's trying to claim insanity? No, I do believe that he was a sleeper agent, a quote-unquote Manchurian candidate, someone who was just wakened at the right time to execute his mission. And oftentimes you'll find that those people, after they're finished, they often have a very hazy look.
One student who knew Nick Cruz says he had threatened other students, and overnight the FBI began searching the home here in Parkland where Cruz lived. That's where Jerika Duncan is this morning. Jerika, good morning to you.
Before Jerika Duncan speaks, let me also say this before I forget. Nicholas Cruz and his brother, of course, they are adopted. At least that's the background story that's attributed to him, that he was adopted. Most likely his adopted parents were his handlers. trying to make sure that he, is properly cultivated to fulfill his mission, whatever that was supposed to be. Both Nicholas Cruz and his brother received treatment at a children's center for behavioral development from a Dr. Lubin. And I found this information a while ago, around the time when this story first occurred. And suddenly you can't find it anymore. Both he and his brother received treatment, quote unquote, from a behavioral psychologist by the name of Dr. Lubin. And when you look up Dr. Lubin, he studies sophisticated techniques in clinical neuropsychology and human engineering. And he held positions with Army intelligence and NASA. For those of you who don't know, NASA is a hub for mind control. They are heavily a part of the MK Ultra program, especially in Huntsville, Alabama.
Good morning, Jeff. The house that you're talking about here is behind me and around the corner. That is where Cruz was most recently staying. And according to the attorney for that family, he was there for about a month and a half. He had been bouncing around since the death of his mother back in November. As you've mentioned already, friends and students are surprised by all of this. They knew that Cruz had a troubled past, but never did they think that this 5'7", 131-pound teen was capable of such a massacre. As investigators search through the home where Nicholas Cruz lived, new details are emerging about the 19-year-old's unsettled past.
They let him live here because he didn't have some place to live.
Attorney Jim Lewis represents the family who gave Cruz a place to stay.
They can't believe that someone who lived in their home that was so close to them for this relatively short period of time was capable of such a horrible, horrible act.
Well, why would you say that they would not know that he was capable of such a horrible act when he was only with them for a short time? Therefore, they should not know what he's capable of, unless it was just their job to watch him until he executed what his maneuver was supposed to be.
Lewis says Cruz was getting an adult education and working at a dollar store where he was a cashier. He
was working at that dollar store, and it allowed him to buy that armory.
He told the Sun Centennial newspaper Cruz legally purchased the AR-15 weapon used in the attack.
If someone would do this, you would expect it to be this kid.
After the
Well, it's very unfortunate that someone will get on television and say things like that. I'm already on record as stating that Nicholas Cruz, in my view, is a monarch asset, a Manchurian candidate. But oftentimes, people around that age get demonized in those high school settings because people are more concerned about fitting into cliques than they are with getting educated. And I'll probably do a video on this when the topic is appropriate. But to be quite frank with you, it's very obvious to me that one of the main problems in the high school system today, number one, is a lot of liberal ideologies that are getting taught and propagated. Students being more concerned with associating with cliques, and a lot of the ostracizing that goes on because you're mixing the genders. Boys and girls should be in different schools. They should not be going to school together. It causes way too much of a distraction. People might not like that. I mean, oh well, it is what it is. A lot of the dumb shit that boys do is to try to impress females, or because they feel awkward around the female element that's there, as opposed to concentrating on their schoolwork.
After the shooting, students described Cruz as a loner who struggled in school.
A lot of people were saying that it was going to be him and stuff like that. We threw a lot of kids through jokes around like that, saying that he was the one to screw up the school. But it turns out, everyone predicted it.
Yes, well, you guys all predicted that he would be the one to shoot up the school. So that maybe should have told you that you either should avoid him or treat him with a little bit more respect, so that you would not be indirectly responsible for provoking something like that. And I'm just speaking from a hypothetical because it's very clear to me that he was an asset. But just in general, how people treat each other in person, and whether it's in the corporate America workplace environment or in these high schools or colleges or what have you, is very much akin to a cult. And when you have people who are not willing to conform to that cult mentality, that can lead to problems. I'm not talking about mass shootings. I'm just talking about interpersonal issues that are not really necessary if people are there to just do what they're supposed to do.
Paul Gold lived next door to Cruz in Parkland and says the death of his adoptive mother had a major impact.
At times,
he had so much anger and pain inside of him.
Gold says Cruz complained about being picked on and bullied in school.
Kids mistreated him, and obviously he wasn't given the best, hand in life.
Well, that's not an excuse to gun down the people that he gunned down. But at the same time, it's very clear that he was put through a series of traumatic issues or traumatic events to further fragment a mental state that was most likely already very fragile from his youth, from his extreme youth, because satanic ritual abuse, which is what is utilized to create a monarch slave, as they call it, oftentimes starts at the age of 1 or 2 years old, or even younger than that, starting with sexual abuse, physical abuse, electroshock treatment, the administration of LSD. That's why they oftentimes have that wide-eyed look. Look up some of the other mass shooters like Adam Lanza and James Holmes. This person right here, they all have that wide-eyed look. James Holmes was from San Diego. I tell you, brothers, anybody from San Diego who suddenly becomes into prominence, I watch them, because San Diego is a military city. And there are a lot of MK assets that come out of that region, i.e. Nessa Diab. Okay. James Holmes, he shot up the movie theater while the film The Dark Knight Rises was playing on July 20th. For those of you who have seen some of my videos in the past, who saw the video that I did on O.J. Simpson when he was released from prison, July 20th is a day of high resonance for the venerators, the worshipers of Heru, because July 20th represents the date of what they call the Heliacal Rising, or the reappearance of the Sirius star, or the dog star. Remember, the Sirius star represents the mother goddess. She rises, and a little bit after she rises on July 20th, the sun rises. The sun represents Heru, or the Dark Knight. That is who the Dark Knight is. So that is why that mass shooting occurred on July 20th, in commemoration of the film, and to perform a ritual sacrifice on that date. O.J. Simpson is an asset, as I've been telling you guys for a very long time. He's a monarch athlete. That's why he was released from prison on July 20th, to bring more chaos. They're going to be following him around until he does something else silly that they most likely initiate in his programming. Bruce Lee was sacrificed on July 20th, by the way. I'll be doing a video on him very soon. He was sacrificed to Apollo, aka Heru, on July 20th. Once again, it's known as the Heliacal Rising. They even had, in the film Dark Knight Rises, the word Aurora in the film. Of course, the mass shooting took place in Aurora, Colorado. James Holmes was an asset, as was Adam Lanza. Also in the film Dark Knight Rises, they had a little portion in the movie where they mentioned Newtown, Connecticut, aka Sandy Hook. I'm trying to remember exactly the scene. I think it was when they were looking at the maps. It had Sandy Hook in one of the little blurbs in the movie. Of course, the shooting took place at Sandy Hook Elementary. You know who else is from Sandy Hook, aka Newtown, Connecticut? Bruce Jenner, who himself is a monarch athlete. As has already been stated, it was in Bruce Jenner's programming to convert over to a woman. The Joker god is held in very high esteem in the occultic circles. As a matter of fact, the image of the Joker is used as a trigger for many of these mass shooters. When you read a graphic novel that was done by the Batman writer Frank Miller, he did a graphic novel called The Dark Knight Returns. Once again, an allusion to Lucifer, aka Heru. And in The Dark Knight Returns, there was actually a portion in that comic book where a man walks into the movie theater and just starts shooting people. A character by the name of Arnold Crimp, who was used as an inspiration for the school shooting of this young man right here, Nicholas Cruz, of James Holmes in Aurora, Colorado, etc. They venerate the Joker. They venerate that character. They're able to program a lot of their sleeper agents with characters from comic books, so that they can just say a word to them and it will initialize a certain protocol, so that they will go about and handle their business. And then once they're done, they won't remember anything that happened. That's what makes them perfect patsies. But look that up. I mean, if you even go back, I mean, if you do research on the image of the Joker was meant to be an allusion to Loki, or in the Mayan mythology, Tezcatlipoca, the jaguar god. Like, for example, Michael B. Jordan, he played a character similar to the Joker or Tezcatlipoca in the film Black Panther, the jaguar god. That's why, once again, when he wore his outfit, he had the leopard print, or as it was known as in the Mayan culture, the jaguar print. He was the god of confusion. Remember Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight? He had that little dialogue with Harvey Dent, Two-Face, and he was telling him about how he promotes chaos. They tell you in many of these movies how they operate, certain strategies that they use. You just have to pay attention.
To see that picture, how does it make you feel to see that?
It makes me sick. It makes me sick to think that he would do something like that.
Gold says Cruz's adoptive mother had him in counseling, but that ended after her death. Meanwhile, Cruz is being held right now at the Broward County Sheriff's Office. Jeff?
Jerika, thanks.
And let me also say this, while it's at the forefront of my mind, just thinking about the character of the Joker and how he's oftentimes used as a trigger for many of these mass shooters. The Joker has what they call an hermaphrodite aspect to his persona, meaning he embraces both the feminine and the masculine, just like the entity known as the Baphomet. Remember in the Dark Knight, Heath Ledger actually dresses up in drag when he dresses up as the nurse, because when he's trying to promote confusion or chaos, he utilizes both the masculine and the feminine principle. The Joker god has heavy influence and resonance in this society, because one of the main credos is what? Ab ordo chaos, or order out of chaos. They create chaos to bring in new order. That's what this event was utilized for, or they're trying to utilize it for. To stage this mass shooting, bring about chaos so that they can get rid of the quote-unquote Second Amendment. But a lot of the Caucasians in Middle America are onto them, so they're not going to allow it to happen. I'm probably going to have to continue this on part 2. But I'm just speaking as things are popping up in my mind. Just going back to Bruce Jenner for a second. There was a clip on the old show Married with Children where Roy Jones, the great boxer, they asked him about Bruce Jenner on a certain episode, and Roy Jones called Bruce Jenner a she. Just to show you, they knew from back then that Bruce Jenner was going to be utilized to push the transgender agenda, which is really just an allusion once again to the god of this society, that being Bacchus, or as he was also known as Attis, Attis, which was the god of Asia Minor, who cut off his own penis. He castrated himself, and the priestesses of his temple were men dressed in drag. And let me also say who else is from Newtown, Connecticut, while it's jumping into my mind. That author for the Hunger Games series, Suzanne Collins, she's from Newtown, Connecticut as well. And basically, what those series of books laid out was what their plans are after the mass roundup. They just want to divvy America up into different sections during martial law, which you pretty much already have now in the form of the Federal Reserve. You have 12 sections. Okay, but what's this girl's name? Jennifer Lawrence. She's MK programmed, as was her partner, or her the male lead in the Hunger Games series. His name is Pita, right? Talking about Pata Min, or Pan. And they would call her character Katniss Everdeen, they would call her the Girl on Fire. Remember, Alicia Keys was referred to as the Girl on Fire. All that's referring to is illumination. She is illuminated. So the rabbit hole is deep with many of these issues, brothers. It's never just what they're trying to convey to the people from a two-dimensional perspective. All right, but I'm going to continue this on part 2. Peace.